All right, today I'm excited to speak with Brandon Bauman, the Chief Strategy Officer at Lodi AI, a platform which uses AI technology to help celebrities, public figures, and individuals monitor and control their online presence through likeness protection. Today we're going to talk about deepfakes and identity protection, and then potentially harnessing your own AI image for monetization. To kick us off, Brandon, tell us a little bit more about your path to Lodi AI and your role there. I know we worked together in your role at Spotify, but I know you've done so much more on the cutting edge of entertainment. So let us know how you got here.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here. This is indeed a wild time across the industry, and we appear to be at the extreme epicenter of all this. But we're very optimistic around the tools that we're deploying and the parties with which we're working. So yeah, I came to Lodi at the beginning of this summer after 8 years at Spotify, where I was global head of legal for the studio. That ride was incredible. We essentially birthed the podcast boom and evolved the audio industry and now video in a very exciting and compelling way. But it's been a sort of a forward point to me to be in the space where technologies are evolving and innovating. Before Spotify, I was at Warner Digital, previously with Machinima on the leading edge of the creator UGC space. Before that, I was working in the conversion and of digital distribution. I was at HBO before that in talent management. So this next chapter of digital replica rights, both how you protect them and how you're able to utilize them in an innovative and profitable way, was immediately what got me excited about what Lodi is doing and the technology that we have built and what we're continuing to build. It is a very exciting new horizon that we're entering here, and certainly no shortage of stuff to talk about.
I know you came to our office earlier this week and gave us a demonstration, and I think it blew everyone away when you did the live versions of you looking up a celebrity and telling us where all their deep fakes or the impersonations and everything that had been out there. And you also shared an article with me earlier about one of your clients, Keanu Reeves, and how he's been using your platform as well. So it seems like you are really at the cutting edge dealing with this particular issue.
Yeah, we are essentially a lifelock for the internet, delete button for the internet, and savior in this space to get control of your likeness and IP back in your hands. The tech itself was initially commissioned from a foreign intelligence agency to do face and voice detection. The founder kept the IP, and V1 of the company was a revenge porn service. Morally and ethically, that is a terrific business, obviously. Commercially, it is a terrible business because people aren't exactly broadcasting to their friends in their network about this great company that saved them from this issue. So we've widened the aperture, and in this phase have pointed it towards the celebrity public figure space. And by way of clarity, when I say celebrity public figure, sure, your actors, your Keanu Reeves, your podcasters, and so on are obvious players, but you can think about C-suite, you can think about three-star generals, politicians, clergy, anybody who has any type of online presence where there's either brand, goodwill, a business behind it, or their word means something. We have county officials sitting on top of the elections committees who are using us for protection. Imagine if there was this voting location at this place is closed, go here, and content like that gets surfaced.
Well, we always start with a icebreaker, which is our hot take of what's getting a lot of buzz in the entertainment industry right now. But I feel like you play right into that in terms of what you guys are doing. And the hot take is that celebrities are needing this more and more. But you give us your hot take because you're the expert on this part.
Yeah, start with the hot take. And I got to get warmed up for this one, but I think that this is maybe an AI favored hot take that certainly impacts the entertainment industry and how all facets of both people and rights holders can and will leverage the space. The dominating sort of theme of recent conversation around compute How are we going to power all of these models? What are the applications that are going to win? Is it going to be DeepSeek versus OpenAI versus Sora in the music space, and Udio and Midjourney and all of the usual suspects that you may hear? I think that with respect to compute and power, which is the hot topic right now, that is something that can be solved. Technology will evolve. We will figure out the power. You have heavy investments going into nuclear and other places, absolved and separate to the impact on the environment part of that conversation. But you can solve it. The one thing that can't be solved is rights. Platforms need the rights from individuals and the rights holders in order to thrive and innovate and deliver the experience that they will need to at scale. You can't circumvent that. So, that's why it's supremely important, particularly with all of the ongoing litigation that we're seeing. But as all the platforms look forward into actually being ethical AI players, you can't ignore rights. If they want to have a thriving business, you got to get the rights. That needs to be brought more forward in this conversation and debate. That's my hot take.
That's a great hot take. And that's a lot of what we talked about too, because when you were explaining the Lodi platform to us, I thought it was interesting that you said you have to control the fakes that are out there before you can take advantage of the technology going forward, right? So if there's a lot of fakes out there, then there's really no market for the authentic thing. So
Exactly.
what you're doing now in terms of what you called the defensive side of it versus what can happen in the future when things are better controlled or there are better boundaries. And then we can go, celebrities or individuals or others can go on the offensive and actually monetize their own name, image, and likeness in this AI world. So talk a little bit more about what you're doing on the defensive side, and then we can go into the offensive side.
Yeah, you're exactly right. You can't have offense without defense in this world. For those who are even, thinking about offense right now, especially off the back of Sora's launch, we have had a tidal wave of inbound, both from celebrities, studios, record labels, and everybody in between. Likewise with the Gen AI platforms too. Phase one is everybody wants to get their stuff under control. Everybody got caught on their back foot with the ease in which their likeness or IP was being essentially appropriated and distributed around the world and going viral. So phase one is, well, let's get this under control. What that looks like is peace of mind. And then for those who are thinking about this commercial offensive strategy is we need to create some economic scarcity now so that the touch points in which we are going to release our IP or likeness rights in the wild are funneled through the channels that we both control and can administer guardrails and restrictions, and also what that looks like from a monetization perspective. So there's got to be this safety, there's got to be this trust, and then a collaborative movement forward in this innovative experience. So what we're doing on the first point from a defense perspective is we essentially eat the internet every day. It's a wild thing to comprehend. We download the internet and we have indexed over 4 billion faces and voice tokens. And we are looking for any unauthorized uses of individuals' likeness rights. What does that look like? It looks like impersonation accounts across social media platforms, those who are bad actors, people falsely suggesting they're in relationships with people, hate speech, false endorsements of products, these kinds of things. There's, of course, the deepfakes moving into with adult content as well, unauthorized merch, deepfakes in any other capacity where your likeness rights or IP are being exploited in a way that you haven't given authorization to. So we attack each one of these categories through our system. There's over 40 AI models that automate this. And then we likewise automate the removal side of it. It's one thing if you can find all of this content, but you need an army to go take all of it down. We automate that solution for everyone. And we have direct relationships with all of the key players. We have custom API access. They know and trust our system. We're not using the sort of civilian takedown request form or portal that you might find on these platforms. So we're able to provide a hyper powered and frictionless experience. I should say that, ultimately we are beholden to the platforms to have the content or posts taken down, but again, they know and trust us, and things certainly move as fast as they can.
Yeah, I think that's interesting from the legal perspective too, because we always think of takedowns under the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, which is obviously wildly outdated at this point. So it's based on the unauthorized use of copyrighted material, right? But in this case, and I think we had an interesting discussion about this the other day too, it's not just even a publicity claim, which we would all like a more consistent publicity framework nationally since it's state by state now. But it's not even just that claim when it's this. It's exactly what you said. It's misusing my name and my image and my likeness to promote things that I'm not promoting, to involve in scams that I obviously am not participating in. So it's a lot of things that aren't what we consider the traditional copyright violations or even traditional publicity violations, because usually they have to also do with raising money or falsely endorsing a product or something of that nature. So it seems like what you guys are targeting is a much broader sort of unethical or unauthorized use of the name, image, and likeness of your clients.
Exactly. That's the operative terminology. That is exactly what we tackle. We're targeting DMCA stuff, right? Publicity matters and everything in between.
Have you seen pushback from any of the social media platforms on that basis? Like, we only take down for strict copyright violations, or is it because you sort of have a bat phone with them that they understand that you're only coming to them when it's serious and it's real and it needs to be addressed?
Generally, we have bat phone privileges across all of the major players with an asterisk of X, and there's dark web, Russian websites. Our reach doesn't go that far for those type of actors, but everything else we have definite bat phone access and can move very quickly.
For our clients and folks in the entertainment industry, it's very interesting, sort of this digital age and the access to celebrities we all seem to have through social media has sort of changed the way that we relate to them, and it's made them more susceptible. I thought that was the most interesting thing in the article about these impersonation scams, that they're really successful. And these people who are doing these scams have done a lot of research on exactly which actors and which personalities are the most successful, and they hone in on those. And then, if you start down this road, you get, 15 different Keanu Reeveses coming after you, or 15 different Kevin Costners. It's a fascinating business model that they've obviously found to be successful, which creates a definite need for this kind of protection in this age.
Yeah, a lot of times what these bad actors will do with impersonation accounts is they will start benign. They will sort of look and smell like a fan account. And then once there's a critical mass of users, they will flip and then drop a link in the bio or change to speaking in the first person, or chat with me exclusively here, or I have some exclusive access to a thing I'm doing, or I have in-person event that I'd love for you to all come to, these kinds of things. They develop the trust, the familiarity with the public, their supposed fans, and then they hook them that way. So you really have to be careful in this space, and whether it's with impersonation social accounts or the actual content itself. Sora brought this to light, I think, for most of the industry in recent weeks. In 9-12 months, no one's going to be able to tell the difference between a deepfake, what's real and what's not. So it's extra critical to be diligent yourself from a public perspective, and also now as you transition into thinking about what the obligation and responsibility is of the platforms who are distributing this content.
That is a very interesting conversation now, especially since we obviously want the legislation format of the no fakes law. So in that lack of formal structure, what do you think social media platforms and tech companies should be doing to prevent these.
I do have to say that some of the leadership who are steering and are directly impacting AI, both policy and legislation, I think are doing a pretty darn good job setting aside, okay, what do you do with with no fakes and party politics? But the people inside the administration, I think, actually are taking a pretty meaningful leading edge in trying to set ourselves up for success and allow all sides of the industry to innovate. Now, that said, as I alluded to earlier, and I was actually in DC a month ago, I had mentioned this when we spoke, the part of the conversation about, power and applications and so on, what is going to dominate, how is America going to win in this AI race, which is the compelling talking point in DC. It's again bringing IP, bringing rights, protecting individuals, making everybody feel safe, and then creating a marketplace around it. That is how to move the needle, and I think that that will be a place where hopefully this time next year, earlier next year, we'll have some foundational frameworks to put ourselves in that best position. Phase one being with likeness rights, with no fakes and so on, and hopefully in short order the IP side of that to follow, subject to all of the whirlwind of litigation that's coming. But at least in the interim, this is Mountainhead in terms of the obligations and responsibilities of the platforms. There's, of course, competing interests with the platforms who are distributing this content. They want the eyes and ears, the viral stuff. Likewise, there has to be an ethical sense of responsibility to make sure that what is being distributed isn't creating harm to the public, whatever that looks like, economic or otherwise. For us, so like what we're advising lawmakers in DC and so on is there are detection tools that can be implemented today. We're on audio, but I'm raising our hand and I'm pointing at us, that can immediately and essentially in real time do detection of somebody's face or voice and determine if it is an authorized or unauthorized use, and then in turn get it taken down, or at a minimum have it flagged as something that is AI generated or under review to the extent there's context that needs to be further evaluated, but where you're at least making it known and putting it front and center to the consumers and the public that, oh, this is not actually who this is or what they're talking about. So there are definitely immediate guardrails that can be implemented. And that's essentially where we want to insert ourselves in this conversation to protect all sides of it and allow the platforms to continue to innovate by having a safe space for their consumers to continue to engage in.
I completely agree. It feels like anything that you watch, you don't know whether it's AI. I think you start to assume that everything is at some point, and you can't trust anything. And already in a world where, there's not a ton of trust on these social media platforms, I think with, like you're saying, the rise of all of these tools that can make it so easy to make these fakes and make fake videos of almost anything, that it just feels like there's nothing to trust anymore. So if we're ever going to bring back any trust, in any of our dissemination of information, I think you're right. And I think it's interesting that you're focusing on flagging it, just saying, hey, this is AI generated. So at least, like you said, you're on notice that this could be problematic, and, try to take a little bit more critical of an eye instead of just whatever you see out there. I think it's an important role that needs to be taken, especially in the entertainment industry, because our folks are always the target of those sorts of, or at least the most common target of those sorts of misuses of the name, image, and likeness.
That's exactly right. It's not only the social platforms that need to step up here, it's also the Gen AI companies. Setting aside the instances of where you're taking a public figure and you're allowing videos or images to be generated, or even characters, there has to be thought and a lot of effort put into the guardrails. And again, the whole rights clearance aspect of this part of the conversation from their end too. Kudos to many of these platforms. They've built something that's very cool. It's very compelling technology, setting aside how it can be deployed. But right now, the guardrails across all of the platforms are trying to play catch up, but this is not a nights and weekends project that you can just throw an engineer on. This is a highly complex, infinite number of hypotheticals and use cases that have to be thought through and implemented to screen and prevent bad actors from using their tools to create harmful content.
It feels like Lodi fills a gap in the market where I feel like with all emerging technologies, there's always that catch up that we're always playing, right? There's this technology that's great, but there's always the bad actors. The other thing that I wanted to make sure we hit on is the ability for those who want to use AI to monetize their name, image, and likeness, to use it sort of on that offensive side. You gave some great examples the other day in terms of, if you're an agency and you have those rights, you can come up with really creative ways of using this AI in a positive way that's compensating others for their name, image, and likeness, but is also not a fake interpretation, not a deep fake, not using images that are unauthorized. So talk a little bit more about that, because I thought that was an interesting usage.
Yeah, this is the fun, we park the doomsday side of this, and you can get very, very creative. We're talking with all the major studios and talent agencies about what are some innovative ways that we can help unlock both rights holders and individuals to give them that, again, that peace of mind, create that economic scarcity, but be forward looking and think about, how can I use this to drive engagement? How can I get more ROI from, if it's ticket sales, viewership, the marketing campaign before a movie release? There's endless ways to immerse now in with the brands and individuals that either you have or you are developing a new kinship with. And that's what these tools are really great at. How do you enforce that? So this is an additional step that has to be considered. So it's one thing if you insert Gen AI company, they have their EULA and it says you can't create any content that causes harm or is any endorsements or depicts anyone doing something, insert fill in the blank scenario. But then what? They're not actually going out to police the internet to make sure that the rules are being followed. This is a way that our technology can be deployed off the back of our defensive solution here to give the peace of mind to the studios, to the talent, to make sure that the rules are actually being followed. Part of the benefit of our technology is that in addition to enabling this sort of safe space, is that from an enforcement and policing perspective, the Gen AI platforms themselves are not actually going out on the internet to make sure that the users are complying with whatever may be in the EULAs of their agreements. If they're saying you can't use the output for a commercialized purpose or to depict the characters or individuals in a way that creates hate speech or is sexualized, insert fill in the blank here. What we're doing actually is, by using our defensive technology where we're going out and downloading the internet, we're actually able to enforce the rules. We're not, platforms aren't beholden, their users aren't beholden to the EULAs on there and crossing their fingers and saying, well, it's here and, here's an indemnity that the user is going to back up. So we're able to give that peace of mind, that sense of security to rights holders and individuals as they think about deploying this out into the real world.
It's really interesting that exactly what you said, what a lot of folks have been concerned about when wanting to harness this technology. I'd like to engage with my fans. I'd like to put new and innovative sort of media and experiences out into the world. But like you said, how can I rely on this? How can it be safe if there's no enforcement mechanism from any of the platforms that are allowing it to happen? So I think it's really great that you can provide that backstop for innovation, because we're going to have to figure out ways to innovate using this technology, because it's not going anywhere anytime soon.
That's exactly right. Winter is here. Winter is not coming.
Exactly. Well, I think that was great. Is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
This is a rapidly evolving space, especially for us. I mean, we are at the epicenter of all sides of the industry, from the talent, the rights holders, the Gen AI companies. If there's ever any ways that we can be helpful, of course, to anybody listening to this, from info sharing or actually deployment of our services, please reach out. This is again a rapidly evolving space. What did I say? Every day has been a week. Every week has been a month. All trends are moving here, and it's just a very exciting space.
Well, I think one thing I wanted to highlight is that you have added tiers to the protection too. So I think it's interesting, even if you're only a little bit concerned about your reputation, you can use the platform sort of how you need it, and you can get access to that dashboard so you can see how your name, image, and likeness is being used. Talk a little bit about that because I thought that was really interesting.
So what Anne's alluding to is for our defensive product. And by the way, just to be clear, the whole offensive version, that is a separate sort of opt-in. That's only to the extent you want to. If you have solely focused on getting control over any misuses of your likeness online, like that just sits squarely in what we call our Watchtower product. And what we've done is we've rolled out a handful of plans essentially to meet individuals where they are in their careers. So a developing artist, certainly they may not need the horsepower that Keanu Reeves may need. So we have different plans that sort of throttle how many takedowns per month are necessary for each of the individuals. And again, this is rolled out to executives. We have C-suite of Fortune 50 companies, as I mentioned, the politicians and so on. And at the entry level point, we have actually a totally free plan, which includes 50 adult takedowns per month, but you get a full overview dashboard that highlights all of the places that you're showing up, categorized by impersonations and deepfakes and adult content and so on. So just from simple click here, you can get this overview of what your online footprint looks like. And an additional thing to mention is we don't train our systems or models off of anybody's likeness or rights or biometric data, which I know that many other players in this space are actually doing that. But yeah, we sleep well at night from an ethical perspective and what we're trying to do and to protect all sides of the industries here.
No, that's great. And I can see that being very beneficial for a lot of folks all around the industry, just protecting their own clients, protecting themselves. Just knowing what's out there is half the battle.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Brandon, for joining us. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in. We'll be back soon with more behind the scenes insights and candid conversations with the people shaping the industry. Until next time, thanks for listening.